Hey class, so this is week 12, which means it is our last full week of the semester. And so what that means is we've got a couple things that we have to cover this week before we move on to our final kind of truncated week next week. So what I want to do first is I want to start out with just another overview of Project 4, because now you guys are in the process of thinking about how to turn your literature review into something that will work for this. You guys have drafts due on Friday, and so let's take a look just to kind of recap what you'll actually, what our focus is. And so, as I said in the kind of last few videos, our goal here is to think about the problem or the topic that you've been looking at in your literature review, or a problem or topic that your authors are talking about in the research that you found. And now that you've had a chance to trace the conversation, to kind of tune in, to listen into what they're saying, it's up to you to enter your own idea into the conversation, your own proposal idea. And so what you're going to be doing is you're going to be proposing a solution or an approach to this topic that, remember, either builds off of something that they're saying, that disagrees and asserts something new, or that calls for more research because we don't know enough to solve the problem, right? Going back to that CARS model thing. And so this is what you're going to be doing for this project. You're going to be trying to offer some new approach to this topic. And so I wanted to look at just the kind of breakdown of the assignment before we get into the sample that I've posted for this week. And so as you'll see, if you come down here to the rubric that I'll be using to grade this, there's a few things that you'll have to have in this assignment. The first is an introduction, obviously. Second is the literature review, which you'll be revising from Project 3A to use in this. But then the new stuff really is the methodology and the proposal section. Now these are kind of weird because what you'll see here in a minute as we go through the sample is that these are purely hypothetical, right? You're not actually going out and trying to solve this problem. You're just thinking about, I have this idea and this is what I think I might have to do to make this happen, and these are some of the challenges that I might face. And so it's going to be a little weird to occupy this kind of hypothetical space, but once you get into it and once you see how this author is doing it in the sample, you'll realize that it's actually not as weird as it seems, before you start writing it. And so what we're going to be focusing on today as I go through the sample are these sections. So the methodology, your methods section. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be drawing on all that literature that you just reviewed in your lit review, because that will come first. And this is, by the way, the order in which they should appear in your paper. You're going to be drawing on all that research to basically think about, okay, so I've got this idea, and here are the steps that I would have to take in order to make this idea happen. So for example, if you wanted to propose a new study, we need further research. I propose a study. If you wanted to propose that study, then what you would have to do is you would have to, in this section, think about, hypothetically, how would I make this study happen? How many people would be helping me with this study? Who would we be studying? What would we be studying? What kind of methods would we use? What kind of hypotheses would we be proposing? What kind of results would we expect? Where would we be doing this? All of the stuff that would go into doing a study. And the way that you can kind of figure out what you might need to cover is that you can look at what the authors in your literature review are doing. Because what you just did is you just talked about a whole bunch of studies. And so you'll want to try to mirror their methods. So like if they did a lot of surveys, or if they did some, kind of lab studies, or if they did, different like internet polling or whatever it is. Try to think about the methods that they use and use those as a guide to kind of craft your own hypothetical methods, right, that you would use. Or, if you're not doing a study, if you say like, look, what I want to do is we need to, raise local awareness about this issue. Well, then how would you do that? How would you reach out to the public? What kind of methods would you use? What kind of advertising would you use? How would you do fundraising? Stuff like that. So whatever your proposal is, think about the things that you would have to do to make that happen. And then for the proposal discussion, what you're going to be doing essentially is once you've come in here and told us what your idea is and how you would do it, this is where you kind of come in here and you think about, what are the limitations or what are the implications of your proposal? How does your proposal actually solve the problem? How feasible is your proposal? So if your idea is like, well, I say we go change the president's mind. First of all, it's not a great proposal, but second of all, it's not very feasible in that we don't have direct access to that kind of higher level government. And so you want to think about like, what is something feasible that I could do? And then what are the limitations? Scope, frame, money, time, people, like all of these different things. Again, totally hypothetical. And so I wanted to draw your attention to that before we dive into the sample just so you guys have it there. And so what I've done here is under this week's activities, I posted this sample of Project 4 with some annotations on it. So I've kind of gone through and made some annotations on it to help guide your reading. But real quick, you'll notice that a couple things we have. The only thing we have to do for this week is your draft of Project 4. Your peer groups are already open for you, so make sure you do that. Okay, so let's take a look at this then. And this is what you're going to see. Now, it's the same proposal that I posted under week 10. However, like I said, I've gone through and I've made some notes that'll help us kind of figure out and orient us. So the first of all is your abstract. You just want to have a general overview of your objectives for the paper. And so then we can kind of dive into the paper itself. And so you'll see this introduction for the research proposal is different than the one that you used for your literature review because it's doing a few different things. And so let's take a look at what it's doing. Teachers employed in schools are leaving the profession at disproportionate rates. Immediately we have a statement of the problem. What we're not doing is we're not focused in on defining the discourse community or talking about the discourse community in general. We're already assuming that we're talking to people in this community, so we don't need to do so much kind of background work. We're immediately diving into the problem that you want to take up in this paper. And so from that, we're just going to start describing the problem. And then you can see down here, we start to have a call for action. Now what this means is, so if we have the problem that teachers are leaving at a disproportionate rate, we then start to come in and say, like, look, there's something that we need to do. We need to figure out how to retain these teachers, right? And so, if, for example, if you're saying, shipping costs are going up in this field, therefore we need to figure out how to keep shipping costs down or something, or we need to figure out how to innovate. So just a call for action that will help us fix this problem. And keep in mind, there is no specific solution here yet. It's just saying, like, look, this is something we need to do something about. Then we come down here, we have a solution statement at the end. Now, this is different than your proposal idea. All this is saying is that we should, in this case, enroll teachers in mentor programs to help retain them, right? So what we haven't done is we haven't given them a specific way to make this happen. Because remember, if this is the problem, this is the saying we need to figure out something to do with it, and this is the idea that mentoring programs can do something about this. All of this is great, but we still have not told our audience how we're going to do that. We have not proposed an idea to make this happen. And so that's why this is different than the proposal statement, which we'll see in a minute. So in this first paragraph, we have the statement of the problem, a general call to action, and then we're starting to outline a potential solution. Okay, so now what you've given me at the end of this is I can sit here and say, okay, I know the problem and I know what we should do about it. We should have students in mentor programs. But then I'm left with a question. And the question is, okay, how do we make this happen? And that is your goal for the rest of the paper, is to tell me how we make this happen. Okay, so let's take a look at what this author does. So after we've got all of this stuff, before we get to literature review, we just have kind of an outline of historical approaches to this topic. And this is just giving me some background information, and so you might have the same kind of thing here, or some of this might appear in your literature review. And then right before we're done, we get down to this section right here. So this is where the author really starts to forecast the moves of the paper. In my research, I will do this, and so this is introducing the basic objectives of the literature review. Understanding methods employed by the mentoring and service programs is the important first step, and so we're starting to get to a proposal idea. This is not yet the proposal statement, but we're starting to see, like, look, we need to figure out how we can get teachers into these mentoring programs and whether or not they're effective. Okay, and then we come down here, and then we're just outlining the specifics of the proposal idea. And all of this is stuff you'll cover in detail in your methods and discussion section. So just to recap, statement of purpose, call for action, and then we have the general solution. We have some background stuff, outline of the literature review, and then all this is doing is starting to forecast and outline the work of the methods and discussion section. All right, so then we come down here to the literature review. Now this is all pretty much the same stuff you've got in here. You'll notice that this author took out the section headers and just focused in on some of her stuff. And so, your literature review might look same, it might look different, but generally we're just using the sources that are approaching the main problem that this paper is covering. So then we can come down here and you'll see at the end of this literature review, and like I said, like, you're literally copying and pasting like vast chunks, if not like almost the entirety of your literature review. So don't feel awkward doing that you're doing the right thing. And then coming down here, we just have kind of the conclusion of the literature review, and this might be copied from your paper in 3A with some slight revisions, but we're just kind of recapping the literature review. But then we have something really important happening here. Right here is actually where your thesis comes in. Now it's weird because research proposals are different than a normal paper. You see we're here on page 14. This is where your main thesis comes in, because now that you've given me the problem, you've given me a potential solution, and you've given me the research to back up why that solution works, now you can come in and tell me exactly how we can make this happen. Okay? So here we go. In the recognition of the deficiencies found in current mentoring programs, I propose the creation of a mentoring program that could accomplish this goal, etc., etc. And so what this person has just done is said, look, I have this idea that mentoring programs might work. Here's some of the research done about mentoring programs. You can see that they're not all that effective. So I think that we should do this. And this is how they've entered the conversation, because what they're doing is they're extending current research. They're saying, like, look, mentoring programs are a good idea. They just haven't been executed well. And so here's how I think we could do them well. And so what they've just done is they've offered up a new approach to this old problem. So then once you do that, once you come down here and do your proposal statement, and then you just, kind of briefly in a paragraph, you're just kind of predicting how this proposal will actually address the problem. So this was just, I predict the retention and attrition rates will fall in line. Again, it's all hypothetical, but you're just thinking like, okay, if this happens, I think this is how it would work. So you can see we come into the methods section, and immediately all we're doing is we're mirroring the same kind of methods that we see up in the literature review down here. So this author is just proposing the methods that they would use in order to make this proposal happen. And so you can see here that's all hypothetical, but your goal is to think through the steps you would have to take to make your proposal happen. And again, pay attention to how this author is using these methods as a model to kind of enact their own methods. So again, it's all hypothetical, and you're just thinking about step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever that you would need to follow in order to make your proposal happen. And then after the methods, you see we have a discussion. And all you're doing right here is you're sitting down and you're thinking about, like, okay, so what are the limitations? What are the implications? How, what would be the effect of my proposal if it became a reality? And so again, you're just sitting down here thinking about all the different obstacles that you would face, right? What are the limitations? What kind of things would you have to take into account? What kind of limited scope would you have to adopt? All of these things, again, totally hypothetical, but it's things that you would have to think about if you wanted to go out tomorrow and make this happen, okay? And the discussion wraps it up. You can see there's no real conclusion. All right, guys, so just to recap, the major steps that you guys should be looking for are, the statement of the problem, a call for action, a potential solution. Come down here, and then we're introducing the moves of the paper, just like we always do in an introduction. Then we have our literature review, which you guys have already written. Coming all the way down. A recap of the literature review, proposal statement, right? This is your thesis statement. The potential effects of the thesis statement, how you would make your thesis statement happen, and what would be the result of your thesis statement. Okay. So again, I've posted that here just for you guys to look through again. But again, it'll seem weird as you start this, but it's hypothetical work, and so it can be a little hard to get started. But all you need to think about as you're writing this is look, this is the topic that my authors were discussing in the literature review. What is my idea in relation to that topic? Okay. Now that I have my idea, how do I introduce my idea into the conversation? Okay. And now what would be the effects of my idea, and how would I make my idea happen? So those are the major steps that you have to work through. Now, I've got your notes that you turned in, so I'll be returning those as well as your introductions to Project Force. You'll get all that back here, tomorrow or Wednesday, and I will be looking out for any emails or concerns that you guys have. So let me know, and if for some reason you didn't get something back or whatever, obviously feel free to email me. So, all right, guys, I will talk to you later.